Hörermodus.
Hello, good morning everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Design, Deploy, Run and Control. My name is Yun Han. I'm the account manager from iGrafx. I'm really happy to introduce the co-presenter, my colleague from iGrafx Professional Service Consultant Mark, as well as Fabian, product manager from our technology partner, Team Solution. Today's session will be recorded, so if you can participate, we'll still follow up with the recorded link. And during the session, you can enter the question anytime in the GoToMeeting question panel, and then we will try to answer as many of them as possible at the end of the session. So if some of you remember from the last iGrafx webinar, Uncover, Transform, Improve, Succeed, earlier last year, we talked about how to help you understand process in your environment, how you can react to changes and continually improve your processes. And at the end of that webinar, we ran a survey so that you can choose the topic that interests you the most in the next webinar. And most of you have then selected the workflow management automation topic. That's why I'm really happy today to introduce my co-presenters, and that we will use some real-world scenario to show you the benefits and how these process automation capability might fit in your organization. So in the next slide, I will show you quickly, who are we, and for those of you who are new to iGrafx, we are a leader in business process management solution, and for more than 20 years, we've been supporting our clients around the world across different industries to achieve process excellence. So our consultants have very solid experience in implementing projects, so to help you meet your goals to achieve the process efficiency. Our headquarters is in Oregon in US, and the EMEA headquarters is in Munich. That's where myself and my colleagues are based in. And today's sessions with Team Solution, they are our technology partner in developing the process automation from iGrafx. And last year we have launched the latest version called iGrafx Origin. It's a web-based platform. It can help you to provide transparency in your organization to meet your goals and compliance requirements. It can also, make the collaboration across different departments very efficient and to absolutely make your process optimized. So today we'll be focusing on the process automation part. In the next slide, I would like to introduce my colleague, our consultant Mark, who will tell you about the iGrafx architecture to give you a better picture about iGrafx. So Mark, can you take over?
Thank you very much. So what we see here is, and the intent of the slide is actually to bring us all together on the same page so that we all have the same understanding of the iGrafx capabilities and what we do at iGrafx. And thus, we have this quick overview of the holistic approach that we provide at iGrafx. So as a base, on the bottom we see the iGrafx platform, which is the web-based platform that we've seen before, which hosts all the additional capabilities and functionalities that we provide, starting with the business architecture that enables us to do enterprise modeling in terms of resources, in terms of strategies, all the aspects that are important in your organization. Next, we have SAP modeling, where we can integrate with your SAP projects. We have intelligent decision making, which is our KPI and business performance management component, which features dashboards and lots of different types of charts to actually gain the most insights out of your data that you have in the organization. And one of the most recent and one of the hot topics right now is obviously risk management, where we offer an additional module that we can plug into the iGrafx platform to enable additional functionality regarding risk. And the headliner of today is the process automation, where we will dive deeper in a second. Just for a really quick recap for all the participants that have been here with our last webinar, where we talked about the cycle of improvement. the main goal there was to actually give you a broad understanding of this holistic approach of iGrafx to get everyone on board on the same page. And today, Fabian will actually go in and dive deeper into the execution component and show you how we actually perform this. Fabian?
Yes, thank you very much, Mark, and thank you very much to Yunhan for your introduction. Today I want to focus on the execution part of iGrafx, but before I dive directly into the live product presentation, I just want to talk about this cycle of improvement once again. So in the very beginning, you model your process, so you define the standard process for all your business, and these processes are documented in iGrafx, and this is what you may have done before as well. But today I will show you how you can bring these processes actually to life. So these process models are executed in our execution component, which means that every process step that you have modeled before is now a task for a responsible person, and this task is automatically assigned to this responsible person. So we actually bring the process to life, and there are huge benefits when you are going into this execution component with your existing process models or your new process models. So for example, you can assure a process reliability. So you can really assure that there are no process variants, which is very important for your compliance, for example. So you can really make sure that your employees really stick to the process that you have modeled before. Another benefit is the traceability, which is very important for certifications, for example, or audit management in the area of quality management. So you can always have a look at your process and you always know how the process ran in the past. Of course, there are other benefits like the transparency, for example. You will always know where your process is standing at the moment. You always know the status of the whole process, and this also brings huge benefits regarding meetings or phone calls or emails, just to talk about where the status of the process is at the moment, and this just can be seen in the process execution component when you use the process execution for your company. Moreover, you are able to do a process cost analysis, for example. You can track the costs for every process step, and you can also analyze this information. There are also automatic escalations, for example. So if something bad is happening during your processes, you can define process paths for escalation scenarios, which then will be automatically dealt with. Another huge benefit is that you can do a bottleneck analysis based on the real-life facts regarding your processes. And of course, you can do a time tracking. That means that you will always know how long your processes actually take, and you always know how long a specific process step takes. And when you have a look at the cycle of improvement, this data is really very important when you want to do a simulation, for example, because you can do the simulation with really hard facts straight from your organizational processes. And of course, you can use all this data which is gathered during the execution to analyze your process and to optimize your process. And the good thing is that you can go through this cycle of improvement very flexible and also agile. That means you can easily change the process model and execute it directly in a new version, for example. Good. So when we talk about workflow management, there are actually two main artifacts which you have to consider. On the one hand, you have the process model, which is the actual workflow. And there you define the responsible persons, also the swim lanes and all the tasks which have to be done. And on the other hand, you have a process accompanying form, which is called smart form. And this smart form takes care about all the data which is gathered throughout the process execution. And this smart form, for example, could replace your existing paper forms or your existing Excel files which you use today to cover these processes. And this smart form also brings dynamic and logic into the process. For example, when you make a decision in the smart form, the process could go into another direction based on this decision. So for example, you reject an order in the smart form and the process flows into another direction. Of course, there are also mandatory fields, for example, so that the data always is complete before it comes to the next process participant. And you can also establish an information logistics, which means that you can arrange the visibility for specific process participants. For example, the HR department needs other information than the IT department, and so you can hide specific informations from other persons, or you can do it via mandatory fields, for example. And this is very important because when you think about your processes where you don't have any system support at the moment, there are huge emails and several Excel files created to deal with these processes, and everyone always knows everything because you can't hide the information, and maybe this procedure is not compliant. And when you execute the process together with a smart form, this can be assured and established in your organization. Good, so what's my agenda for today? I just want to briefly show you how to model a process and to deploy it directly into the system, and of course I want to show you how easy it is to do that and also to do changes on the process and deploy it. And in the second part I will show you a full-grown customer example of a luxury car manufacturer. Good, so at this point I will switch directly into my browser and I will show you how a process is created here in iGrafx. We are using the BPMN standard, and in this example, which I will show you today, I will take care about a onboarding example. So in this scenario, a new employee is coming to your company, and until his first day, some tasks have to be done before he arrives. For example, we want to make sure that he gets his mobile phone or his desk when he arrives. So in this onboarding example, there are maybe two specific organizational departments involved, for example, the HR department and the IT department, and every process starts with a process event, and then you can just go on modeling. For example, the first task in this process could be to create a personal file for the new employee. Then the IT department has a task, for example, order hardware, and after that it goes back to the HR department, and the HR department defines the loan for the new employee, and so on. So this is a very simple example just to show you how the modeling works and how the execution of this process actually works. Of course, in a real-life scenario, you would add some automatically sent emails or XOR decisions, parallelizations, etc., maybe sub-processes even. So this is also possible, but today I just want to give you a brief introduction into the automation. Good, so this is the typical process management. We have just modeled a process, and now we have to tell the automation component who is actually responsible for the process. So for example, we can, when you install the process automation component, you have several possibilities to introduce more data and to parameterize your process. For example, you can add a process owner. This is the group, for example, which is able to see the process during execution. The group starter are the persons who actually may start a process instance from the standard process. So in this case, the HR department is able to start an actual instance for a new employee. For example, Mr. Johnson comes new to the company, and the HR employees are starting this process for this new employee. The deployer is the one who's actually able to deploy a new process version into the automation component. So in this case, also the process manager. Let's go into the swim lanes. We now have to tell the system who's actually responsible in the HR department, and here I just enter the HR department, and this data of course can also be retrieved from your existing Active Directory, for example, so you don't have to type it in manually, but for this showcase I will do it manually today. Good, so these are the minimum requirements to deploy a process or to parameterize a process and to bring it to life. So now I can go to File, Automation, and deploy the model directly onto the server. And I will show you this. Just enter my password, and now the process can be executed. So it's really that easy. I now switch into the execution component. I log in as someone from the HR department in the so-called to-do client. The to-do client is for the process participants. So they have one inbox where all the tasks from different processes come together. And here on the upper right corner, I can start a new process. For example, this onboarding iGrafx UK example, which we've just modeled before. And when I hit on Start Process, we start a process instance for one specific person. And in this case, we do not have a smart form so far because we have not defined one yet. But the process can also be started without a form. And when we click on this task, which has just come up, we can see that we are really working with this process model which we have just modeled before. So here you can see via this highlighting that we are now in the HR department, and the HR guy now has to create a personal file. So this is how this process automation component works, and this is also our philosophy. So we only have one process model, so this process, there is no technical model needed, and which has to be created by your IT department, for example. This is not the case. You can simply model your processes and bring them to life by yourself, so you're not dependent on an IT department. So when I now finish this task, it will automatically go to the IT department, and me as someone from the HR department doesn't have to take care about anything regarding this process anymore. So it's assured that the IT department now receives the task, and I don't have to send an email manually, or I don't have to call someone from the IT department. It's just so the users are taken by the hand and they are guided through the process, and it's assured that they really stick to the process that you have just modeled before here in iGrafx. And of course, you can also do changes to the process, and you can just redefine your process, and it will it's the same procedure again. So when you here, for example, order software, you can directly redeploy this process model, and you can make sure that all the new process instances now run with this new version of the process. So when we start the process again, we can see that now version 2 is deployed. We start the process instance again from our standard process model. We receive a task create personal file again, and when we have a look at the process model, we can see that we are now working with this newly defined process model. So it's really that simple and that easy. Good. What else can you do here? You can define more automation properties. For example, inside of one activity, you can define a duration for this task. So, for example, you give the person 4 hours to create this task, to finish this task, excuse me. And you can also add several tasks as well. So, for example, you can do a, let's say, checklist here. For example, inside of this create personal file activity, there are several tasks to do. For example, scan the CV of the new person, and then you can save the task. And of course, there are several more possibilities to add more tasks. If you think about it, for example, you could also scan the picture of the person who will come newly to your company. You can also add events, and these events are there to bring in more dynamic into the process. For example, you can rename the process instance automatically. You can also assure that at this stage of the process a specific document has to be uploaded before the task can be completed. And you can also define automatic tasks, for example, to create information or to send information to a specific third-party system, etc. Good. So this is how it actually works. This is how the philosophy of TIM and iGrafx works here. And now we'll switch into a full-grown example. And just let me switch to my PowerPoint presentation really quickly. Good. In this case, we are talking about a special car manufacturer, which is called BMW M. BMW M uses the cars from the BMW company, and they are tuning them. So there is in the internet you can find a car configurator, as you may know. So you can choose what you want, which motorization, which kind of model, and which kind of attributes, etc. But there are also some requests to BMW M which are completely out of line. So for example, some people, they bring their own wood which shall be implemented in the car, or they want a special paint which is not available on the market, or they bring their own leather which has to be implemented into the seats. So there are special requests which cannot be dealt with in the standard car configurator in the internet. And there is one process, there is one process to deal exactly with these special requests. And before they have implemented this process with iGrafx, they had many meetings to deal with these requests. They sent many emails. They had a huge Excel file to introduce all the data and to check the feasibility of the request. And the main problem was that the answer, the speed from the request until the answer was not really satisfying. So what they have done is they have modeled the process with iGrafx so that they can see who is actually responsible during the process. They have parallelized many activities, and one of the hugest benefits was that there were less meetings, so the resources were used better, and the coordination of the tasks was done automatically. So in the end, they reduced the delivery time from 3 months to 4 weeks, and of course BMW M is now producing more special cars. Good. So this is the story about BMW M, and I will now show you how they implemented it in our workflow component. I now log in as someone from the sales department from BMW M, and I will now show you how these guys from the sales department work here in TIM. And when I start the process, you can directly see that there is a huge form which has to be filled out. For example, you have to choose the specific model, you have to choose the motorization, and this data, for example, can also come from databases or from other files or from other systems. So you can directly connect to these systems and make sure that the information is coming from these systems, so that the sales guy is not able to introduce something wrong, like a misspelling or something. And you can also see that there are mandatory fields, so I cannot send a request to some of the involved departments before I introduce the data. For example, I have to tell them what special request we are talking about. It's a special request from UK, for example. And here up here, I can choose which departments shall be involved during the process execution. For example, I can choose that there is a special paint, a special upholstery, or another special request which will be sent to the manufacturer. So in this case, I choose the special paint, And please have a look down here, because the form will be growing dynamically when I choose it. I choose yes on special paint, and now I can see that there is another section coming up where I can introduce some data regarding the paint I request. For example, a special paint would be Jägermeister Orange, for example, and the person who is requesting this Jägermeister Orange, for example. So there are many other fields I could show you now, but I think that this is sufficient for the moment, and I will now start this process with this data. So I've filled all the mandatory fields, and now the process instance starts. And since I've chosen the special paint department, the special paint department receives a task right now. And the sales guy, of course, has other to-dos, as you can see here, but I will now show you the view from the development paint department. Good. So I now log in as someone from the development paint department, also in the to-do client. And this person has some tasks already, but here in the tab Task of My Groups, I can choose from tasks which I want to deal with now. So here we can see that we have received a new task, and when I hit Grab Task in this menu, this task is transferred to my personal inbox, and it's assured that no one else works on it. So here you can see the task which we have created by starting this process instance. And in a real case scenario, I would now go to the details, and here in the details you can see what you actually have to do. So there is an actual working description for this specific task, and this is very important for example, for employees who come new to the company. They can be directly integrated in these running processes by just adding them to the specific group, in this case, development paint. At the bottom here, you can see a special feature. So at every moment in the process, you're able to create tasks which are not modeled in the process. So you can create an ad hoc task, for example, to if you want to ask your supervisor to help you, you can create this task, or you make an inquiry. For example, you need information from a supplier, and of course this is very human, and this happens very often also in processes without system support. But when you use these features like ad hoc tasks or inquiries, you can also analyze these tasks, and you can use the information directly to optimize your process. Good. What else can you do as a participant of this process? You can add documents, for example, so that there are no, let's say, 10 emails, 12 Excel files to describe it in different versions. Here is one central space where all the data comes together. And if you want to know something about this request, for example, when the customer calls, you can directly dive into this process instance, and you will find all the information straight in one place. You can also add notes, for example, just to tell the others what you're doing at the moment, and you can also send direct notifications if something newly happens in this process instance. You can also have a look at links, you can track efforts, and of course you always see the process model together with this highlighting. And as you can see here, this process is much bigger than the example that we have just modeled before. And here you can also see that we are making decisions via introducing data in the smart form. So I've just chosen the special paint department, so this process is just right here in the special paint department and not also in the upholstery department or the manufacturing department. So they are not involved in this process, and of course they don't have to. So we are just simply asking the paint guy, is this request possible or not? And if the paint guy says yes, it goes directly into the controlling department. They are doing the pricing, and then it goes back to the person who has actually started the process, and the sales guy creates the offer and sends it out to the customer and waits for his decision. In the smart form, we can see that the upper area, which we've just edited as a sales guy, is now read-only. That means I cannot change anything up here. So the request is safe, let's say, and I can only change something here in the special paint area of the process accompanying form. Good. So in this case, I just save the form, finish the task, and the process goes on. Before the process goes on, I have to make a decision. For example, I can send the process directly into the controlling area, or I say, I need additional time, please. And in this case, for example, you can also analyze how often the paint department needs more time to complete a task, etc. So this is the information a process manager needs to really improve the processes. In this case, I choose pricing special paint, and now the controlling department has the next task. So what we've seen now is the perspective from a process participant which doesn't have any managing role, who doesn't have a managing role or any managing rights. And now I want to show you the operational client for the actual process manager. The process manager doesn't take care too much about tasks, but all the processes which are running at the moment in the company. So on the left side up here, you can see all the processes which the process manager is responsible for. For example, the 8D problem solving, or the master data process, idea management, onboarding management, risk management, and also the special request. And here you can see all the running special requests, and you can also see the overall status here by this traffic signs. Here, for example, everything is in time, but here on the lower end, there are some process instances which are out of time plan. And if I choose one, I can see where the process is standing at the moment. I can also see who is actually assigned to this task. And if there is no one assigned, me as process manager can assign someone. For example, I choose Melanie in this case, and I assign the task to her, and I make sure that the task now is in her inbox. On the lower left corner, you can see a bottleneck analysis. So in this diagram, you can see where all the processes are standing. So you can see the overall status of all running process instances. In this case, you can see a bottleneck here in the total pricing activity, which is in the controlling department. You can see here in this case that around about 50 process instances are now at the moment in the controlling department, and this could be a bottleneck because the next step in the process is that the sales guy writes the offer, and so this is one of the most important steps. And as a process manager, you can now have a look in the department. Maybe there are 2 less people involved in this process, or maybe they have to be trained again, etc. So this is data which is just in our process database and can, of course, be analyzed at any time. Good. So this was, on the one hand, the process participant, and on the other hand, the process manager. The process manager, of course, has several more options. He can, for example, edit the times in the activities to be on time, for example, to bring this red light to green again. He can also do reportings. He can also use a process as a template, so he doesn't have to introduce all the data again in the process accompanying form. So he has many more options to deal with the process and to steer the process in order to be on time. Good, so let's go back into the presentation. As you saw, this was really a huge benefit for the whole company. So in the end, they are now producing more cars because they can do the feasibility check much quicker, and they can answer the potential customer much quicker as well. And also Rolls-Royce, situated in UK, had the same problems which I've discussed before, and they also had a huge Excel file to deal with the process. And as you can see here, the process on the right side is even more complex, and also the form is even more complex. There are many tabs here. For example, about the cost input, the product, the after-sales, design, engineering, etc. So at Rolls-Royce, every car is a special request, I guess. So there are many more attributes which you can edit here. Good. So just to finish this up, as you saw, there are many benefits for you regarding the process automation, and now I'm free to ask all your questions.
Thank you very much, Fabian. Yeah, I think it's very exciting to see the real case study. So the success story, how you actually turn the challenges that clients are facing into real benefit. And I think the participant can also see that instead of having separate pieces and different files, you can actually have one solution that combine all and to have a control over the complexity. And I really also like the that we can see from the management view from different perspectives and where the process lies. I think that's a very exciting part to see. So now we'll start taking the questions, and while we are answering them, you can while we're on it, you can also keep typing a new question. We'll try to answer all of them if possible. So first question came in. So Fabian showed an example of a customization process, and I'm wondering if there are any other type of processes that might benefit from this. Can you mention if there's any other example that you can use, maybe from other department, etc.?
Oh yeah, sure. Of course, you can imagine every process, for example, in the HR department, as I showed before, and previously in the modeling phase. Also in the production, of course, also in the financial sector. I think I have even a slide in the backup. Let me just check. Oh yeah, this is an overview about all the implemented processes. So we are really, there are no boundaries, I would say. So if you're talking about engineering, purchase requisitions, or demand processes, approval processes, everything is possible, but we are focusing on the human workflow side. So from our perspective, we are keen on these processes which are very complex, where many people are involved, and where coordination is really difficult. So this is where we feel well.
Perfect. So I hope this answered the question. Another question is it possible to integrate with other systems, for example, SAP, SharePoint?
Yes, of course, it's possible. We have also standard connectors to the mentioned systems, but we can also deal with other systems because we are a completely web-based tool, and we can connect to these systems, for example, by using web services, which can be used to read data, to create data, to update data, for example. But we can also directly integrate with an existing database, and of course we can do the integration via file exchange, for example. So there are many possibilities, and yeah. It's always one of the first questions in these meetings, and it's very important, of course, that we take care about the existing IT landscape. So we do not want to replace a system, but we want to integrate the system into these processes.
Okay, so we have 5 minutes left. I think we can still take another few questions. So first one is, how are the forms that you showed created? I'm guessing this refers to the smart form?
Sure. There are actually two ways. We have one form configurator, where you can just handle simple forms by dragging and dropping fields into the form, and then you can directly deploy it together with the process. And the other option is to program the form with HTML. So it's just plain HTML, and you can also enrich the form together with JavaScript and jQuery, for example, when we're talking about huge and complex forms. So there are two possibilities, and yeah, this is how we deal with the process forms, which you have seen before in the BMW example and also the Rolls-Royce example.
Perfect. So we still have quite a few questions, but so are the workflow models different than the normal process model? Let's say a user's logging to iGrafx, and can he see that this workflow model with automations in the background? So I'm not sure if Fabian, you understand the question?
I try to answer it.
Yeah.
Okay. The process model is the same as before, so there is no hidden technical process model. It's just one single point of truth. It's just one model which is created with a BPMN standard in iGrafx. And this model is directly interpreted in our workflow engine, and all the tasks are delegated to the persons. The decisions are made also directly when you for example, model an XOR gateway. Also, the parallelization is dealt with when you model a parallel gateway. So, yeah, it's only one process model, and you can use your process models which you've done before. But usually, when you have one documented process which you have modeled before, you didn't think of automating it. So maybe there could be some process steps which will be altered or will be edited before the deployment. For example, you do not necessarily have to model a process activity which is called hand over information to someone else, because the workflow will deal with it. So in the end, you will have processes which are more mature in the end than the,
Okay.
because they really have to also fit the BPMN standard when you deploy it into the workflow engine.
Okay, so we'll take a last question. Can the actor in the to-do process be an external partner or supplier?
Yes, of course. You can give licenses to the external suppliers if you want to, and you can also make sure that the external supplier, for example, does not see specific data in a smart form, and you can also make sure that the process tasks are directly delegated to the external partners or supplier or whatever.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Fabian. So for those who asked a question that we don't have time to answer now, we'll try to follow up with you and come back to you with the answers. So now I'll just like to quickly wrap up for the session. Really thank you, Fabian and Mark, for the for the presentation. And what I will do now is first I'll give you a quick overview of the upcoming events of iGrafx. We have a logistic customer conference event in Munich on the end of March. So if you are interested in participate, you can contact us and we can send you an invitation for that. And we will organize another webinar in May, and as usual we will run a survey. Let me start launching now. We will ask you the topic that you're most interested in for the next webinar. So feel free to choose a topic that you want to see and want to learn more about in the next webinar. We'll make sure to invite you also to join it. Okay, so I can see some result already coming in. Okay, great. I can see that. Most of you have now voted. So if you have any feedback or other question, you can feel free to contact us. And we hope that you've enjoyed this session and learned a lot about iGrafx process automation. And I would like to thank Fabian and Mark again for your time and the amazing presentation.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for participating. See you all very soon. Thank you. Bye.